All right, now we got the thumbs up. Barbara, you ready? All righty, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Oviedo City Council CRA Governing Board meeting. It is Monday, July 15th, 2019, approximately 5:30 p.m. We have all members of the board present. At this time, our first order of business is the approval of our minutes from April 1st, 2019 and May 20th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our second item of business, it is resolution number 11619. It's a resolution for a sanitary sewer connection assistance for 55 Avenue B. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. John Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor Persampier, members of the CRA Governing Board. The item before us is a request for the Oviedo CRA Governing Board to approve a request for sanitary sewer connection assistance for the property located at 55 Avenue B within the Oviedo Community Redevelopment Area, and also for an amendment to the fiscal year 2018-2019 CRA budget to allocate funding for the request. The City of Oviedo received a request from the Oviedo Boys and Girls Club to be the initial applicant to take part in the Oviedo Community Redevelopment Agency's residential sewer connection program. The requested service is for the closure and filling of an existing septic tank and connection to the city's sanitary sewer system that serves that area. The sanitary sewer capital recovery charge is the incremental cost to the city to maintain the sewer system, and that is estimated to be $2,403 for this. The utility service deposit is $206.50, and the estimated plumbing cost to connect the sewer to the sanitary sewer is $2,050. Combined, the total estimate is $4,659.50, included with a contingency of approximately 50%. The overall requested funding amount is for $7,000. The proposed use of the structure will be a Boys and Girls Club facility. The future land use classification for the property is medium-density residential. The Residential Sewer Connection Assistance Program is not currently funded at this time in the budget. The current balance appropriated for other eligible capital projects account in the budget is approximately $76,076. The requested assistance for $7,000 may be accommodated within that amount, leaving a appropriated for other eligible capital projects balance of $69,076. The reduction in the use of septic tank systems will have a positive effect upon the local area's water quality. The redevelopment and reuse of the property of 55 Avenue B by the Oviedo Boys and Girls Club will also have a positive effect upon the community and provide organized activities and programs for the city's youth. These activities are all consistent with the Oviedo CRA's long-term redevelopment goal of neighborhood stabilization and improvement. It is recommended that the Oviedo CRA Governing Board adopt the resolution 116-19.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 116-19.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman Henkin, you have the floor.
I mean, for a CRA to get a Boys and Girls Club off the ground there as sort of like an anchor out there and help them out, this is one of the good projects, so I just think it's a good thing. Good.
All right. And my second, was that Mr. Axel?
I just think it's a good use of our funds, that's all.
Great. Tim, do you have anything to add? I'll go down to you.
I agree.
Jeff?
I just have one question for Mr. Groot. Mr. Groot, I'm a member of the Boys and Girls Club, his board of directors for Seminole County. I just want to make that known and want to know if I need to recuse myself from this vote.
No, sir. You have no conflict of interest. It does not come to your gain or loss. This vote does not affect your personally in any way. So you have no conflict of interest.
Thank you.
Bob, anything?
I had a couple questions. The utility service deposit, the $206.50, will that be returned at some point in time?
Brian, that's a question for the utility department. I am not familiar with the function of the utility service deposit and whether or not it is returned.
Oh, Jerry will. Bobby Jerry's got it.
Yes, it'll be returned after 12 months if the account is in good standing.
And one last question. The 50% contingency, why was that contingency so large on that?
Bobby, that one's yours.
Honestly, that's a ballpark guess by our Public Works Director, because the initial estimate that I saw seemed awfully low. So I was trying to make sure there was enough funding to get that sewer connection in there.
Okay, that's all I
So,
had.
just in
Perfect.
case something goes wrong, if they open up the hole and the lateral's not where it's supposed to be and they have to go deeper, these things happen.
Perfect.
So,
Sounds good.
Sir.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
No? Keith, anything?
Just a quick question, Bobby.
Sorry, Bobby.
Since we're connecting to this facility, is there a potential to expand on that, maybe connect into some of the other homes back there to get them?
well, actually, the entire Avenue B area, Stevens Street, all that has sanitary sewer. The city actually had a program
Oh, gosh, that was...
years ago.
Yeah.
Well, since I've been here, we actually helped to subsidize connections, and it sunsetted at a certain point. But that whole area has sanitary sewer in it.
Okay.
So that was CDBG.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, sir. Like 2004, 2005.
So where is this line coming from? Is it close by to where those?
There is it feeds into a lift station that's right there on Old Chiliota Road. It's kind of hiding in plain sight.
Okay.
And it pumps around the world and makes its way to Mitchell Hammock and then actually to the wastewater plant.
Okay. All right. That's all I got. Thanks.
Great. All righty, well, I have nothing to add. I think it's an awesome use of our funds, so thank you, Bobby.
Yes, sir.
Anything else from anyone on the board before I call the question? Motion on the table is to adopt resolution number 116-19. So all of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All righty. Our next item on the agenda is the board had asked for an update on cost of using CRA dollars for the renovation of the old post office into the community/senior center. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Jones, and John, you can just lead through however you want the presentation to go.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mayor Persampier, members of the CRA Governing Board. This is a request for the Community Redevelopment Agency to provide direction regarding the city's post office renovation project. At its April meeting, the CRA Governing Board requested information on what would be required to renovate the former post office facility. Staff obtained quotes from contractors to perform the necessary renovations. The estimated costs are provided in a table in your agenda packet, and we'll go through a presentation here momentarily. The total estimated cost for renovation is approximately $617,000. Staff recommends a 15% contingency for the renovation, which is estimated at $92,557.80. The recommended contingency included the total cost for renovation is $709,609.80. And Mr. Boulware has prepared a presentation that he would like to give to you this evening regarding the community center.
Thank you, John. Drew, come on up. How are you tonight?
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Board. At the April 1st meeting, you also asked us to put together a operating cost, and so staff has went a little bit and put something together, not knowing necessarily how our council might want to move forth with this building, but what we've kind of done is since we purchased the facility in 2011, as you all know, we've had layouts done twice by two different consultants, and the following renderings and in the current building layout are present of the Postal Service, and possible recommendations which could be used as for senior programming, community rentals, educational classes, cultural and arts and crafts. Thanks. So this was the original layout or a design that was kind of done, an idea. This was back in 2012, around 2013 actually, by Ed Brinkley. If we go to the next one, that's the existing interior. That's pretty much how it still looks from when we purchased it back in 2012. It's still wide open. Police and fire are utilizing it occasionally for some training presently. Moving on. And then these were renderings The next few are renderings that were done. This one was by the first consultant, Ed Brinkley, and then this one is by Borelli and Partners. Borelli and Partners, we actually, at that time, we had them under contract to do design of the building, renovation, and or possible tear down and build new. So these next few renderings, this kind of shows the overall site plan of what the building could look like, conceptual site plan. So, real quick, what John alluded to earlier, this is just basically the breakdown if we, the city, acted as our own GC and hired outside subcontractors, basically, which is what the pricing that we've put in place at present. Demo on the north side of the trailer is $6,000. Blocking up that enclosure is $5,230. Sprinkler alarm system, $95,000. New roof, $52,000. HVAC, $79,000. Bathroom renovation to make it accessible, ADA accessible, $42,500. Front of the building, a new storefront basically, $23,800. The flooring, $50,341. Pressure cleaning and painting, $10,200. Electrical, $75,000, just short of $76,000. Sewer, $25,610. It's presently not on sewer. Renovation of the parking lot, sidewalk, doors to make everything ADA accessible, another $18,230. Parking lot fixtures, big cost because the lighting is deplorable at best down there, and this would bring it up to most of the lighting that we have in, along our roadways and parking lot, for example, at Sarah Lake Park, et cetera. $106,000. Remove a drop ceiling, $13,563. Air quality checks, $9,095. 15% contingency, and then permitting it comes to $709,609. Now, according to what this board was to decide, one of the things I did want to bring up is that we could act as we went to the process of what we're doing now, act as our own GC and go out and hire individual subcontractors to do all the work that's listed, or we could go back out if this board decided to go back out and revisit with a consultant to have plans, construction plans, done like we were kind of doing with Borelli and Partners in the past. But there would be an additional fee, probably somewhere estimated between $85,000 and another $100,000 to do that. So, in my opinion, to do that, and then also then on top of that, put it out to bid, there's a possibility, not knowing, construction costs continue to escalate as we speak right now. So my worries in doing that is that this $710,000 of renovation could end up coming closer and closer to $9 or $1 million. If council remembers, when Borelli and Partners came to us initially, and when we were doing the design at that time back in 2013, we were in the neighborhood of about $850,000 up to $1.2 million if we tore down and completely rebuilt. So, that's in kind of in that neighborhood if we were to revisit with a consultant. But that's once again up to this board of how we might move forward. Also staff went back, I sat back down with staff, and we looked at how the building could be utilized, okay? Initially, when back in April, I'd given this board a cost estimate about $400,000 of operating per year. So we went back and we started looking, and if we were to operate like we do our other buildings, this would be a 14-hour operation, 7 days a week. So we started looking, and it was going to actually be above the $400,000. So what we did was we went back and we kind of looked at it, and I know that it's been discussed as possibly utilizing it as a senior center. So what we've done is we've put together startup costs as well as operating costs moving forth with it being utilized as a senior center basically 6 days a week from 8 o'clock until 1 o'clock, and then from 1 o'clock on 7 days a week it'd become a rental facility. Once again, if this board and council was to choose to possibly do that in the future. By doing that, what we looked at is we could move some of the program, some of the rentals, smaller rentals that we utilize presently at the Center Lake Park Amphitheater Cultural Facility. We could possibly move some of the smaller ones, photography club, HOAs, smaller birthday parties and rentals like that, to this facility, which might make sense, lower cost for the people utilizing the facilities, and then we could have our higher end rentals, might increase the higher end rentals at the event center. So that was one of our thought patterns. Initially, if you go back, John, one more there. Initial cost, and this is just basically once we renovate it. Initial costs are about $150,000 for tables, chairs, computers, desks, TVs, projectors, city fiber net connection. The building is not directly connected to City Hall, so we'd have to do that. Kitchen amenities, ice machines, coolers, refrigerators, microwaves, and things like that. So, this would be a one-time startup of about $150,000. Next page. Thank you. So with what I described as far as utilizing it as a senior center, we basically are looking at a facility supervisor, a custodian, and then we came up with, we were looking at a lot of different positions. So we came up with a couple, and we're going to come up with kind of a couple of new positions, which are going to be called facility specialists, in which they're part rec, part custodial. They'll actually be overseeing some of the rentals and things like that, so that we wouldn't never necessarily have to have full-time staff at the facility at all times. About 541 hours of seasonal staff to offset, and then the operating expenses, contractual services, copier, utilities, building maintenance supplies, repairs, buildings, grounds, equipment, and then just annual operating supplies. Comes to, between the two with salaries as well as operating, comes to $297,373. And then you've seen the next page is basically kind of the hours of operation if the board thought that would meet. And I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Drew. Anybody have any questions, or anybody like to start? Yes, Tim.
Drew, what will be the maximum occupancy of this building? Do you have a handle on that yet?
I don't have an actual number yet. Some of that is due to, according to how we might have to move a little bit. We don't know for right now if we're going to have to move any interior walls to meet accommodations for ADA for the bathrooms. The building is total building is just shy, I think, of 8,000 square feet. That's with everything. So the interior room is probably in the neighborhood of a little bit over 6,000 square foot. Just a guess off the top of my head, probably 150, 175 people. It's pretty good size to be able to accommodate quite a few people.
The reason I ask is I was trying to back into the maximum parking you would need.
Yes.
And based on Little John's survey of 2.2 during social events, you'd need about you could fit 143 people.
Yep.
Max, without spilling over into neighbors. And so my question is 65 spaces enough? And is there any adjoining land the city may own that we could possibly use as spillover parking?
By taking the trailer off the north side of the building, we'd pick up some additional parking in that area. In one of the renderings that Borelli had done initially too, is if you look at how the building's setting now, on the north side of the building, that's where the septic system is now. So we'd open that up, and there'd be additional parking to the north. So as the front of the building sets now, you could take and add. We estimate another 10 parking spaces to the north. You'd have to have a drive access, of course, going into there would probably be a double drive access, one on the south end of the building, one on the north. And then another 8 to 10 parking spaces where the trailer now resides. So you're gaining a few. One of the things I know we discussed eons ago was possible weekends and evenings possibly, and I know we had approached the bank, Citizen Bank, about possibly utilizing their parking during evenings and weekends. I think that possibly would still be feasible if the bank would, still look at, possibly allowing that to happen. The biggest thing is during day hours,
Right.
And that's until, it's one of those things, it's hard for me to answer that question. It's one of those things, build it and let's see what shows up. It's kind of the same situation we're almost in with Center Lake Park, for some of our events, people find a place to park. So, but presently, on site, no, I don't think we would have any additional parking unless Bobby can let me know maybe something that could be done on the rest of the site. Because of course, one of the other things that we discussed in April 1st was the stormwater and RTP grant that we're doing to the north of this project, possibly. So I know we're going to have a little parking at the trailhead, but nothing large. Yeah.
So that's my only question for this project. How do we address the parking need? Because 65 spaces is not going to be.
Okay. Anything else, Tim?
No, sir.
Anyone else?
Drew, quick
Yes, sir.
question. If we were just to say, yeah, this all looks good, go ahead, how long would it take to get that actually up and operating? Just a rough guesstimate. I'm putting you on the spot, but how long would it take to do all of that? And it's open and people can go use it?
A year?
Yeah, I would tell you, we're looking at a year.
1 year?
The process of going through everything and working with, even if we acted as our own GC, still having to coordinate different functions or different, as the contracts came in and did work, having to do all that, the process of going through making sure everything's done correctly, over a year before
year.
we probably would even open.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I got for now. Thanks.
Anybody else? Well, Drew, just to address the parking concerns, we're looking at doing urban planning in the historic downtown. And as a matter of fact, it's going to be on our agenda later on this evening. We're going to be getting a presentation for a master land use plan and development agreement, and then we're also going to be talking about visioning for a whole entire master plan for an update to the downtown.
Yes, sir.
So, when it comes to parking, and you have, property owners who want to go more dense, and we want to bring things up to zero lot lines, who want to create that old downtown feeling, well, then, the parking, just as with Oviedo on the park, becomes shared.
Yes, sir.
It's a facility with 65 spaces, and, there's plenty of other spaces people can find on a, Saturday afternoon or an evening to park and walk and go to an event. I don't think it has to be a requirement that we go back to suburban planning where we put acres of parking that it's kind of like the Catholic Church. Catholic Church has acres of parking for 1 day a year. Well, 2 days, Easter and Christmas. And then the rest of the time, none of the parking lot gets used. So while I understand the concern, I think that we have planning and visioning coming up that's going to address those issues. In terms of, the renovation of the building and the use of the building, I would think that the operating costs, we'll have to figure that out on the council side later on, but the startup cost, $150,000, should get rolled into what we're doing, if we do, with the CRA money. I like the idea of splitting it up. What you're doing with it now is sort of like what we used to do with the Memorial Building.
Yes, sir.
If I remember, the Memorial Building used to be until 1, 2-ish.
Yep.
The seniors used to be in there.
It's basically-
coffee, cards.
Yes, sir.
And then in the evening and afternoon, you had rentals for HOAs. Just about every HOA used to use the Memorial Building.
Yeah, and smaller rentals, birthday
Right.
parties and things like that, graduation parties and
So
things.
I don't know if I think the concern about the large events would be far and few between. Because I
Yes.
think if somebody's going to have a large event, they're going to want to do it at Oviedo on the Park. We have other facilities that are better suited for that larger event.
Yes, sir.
People who are going to be renting this are going to be more budget-friendly, let's say.
Exactly.
So it'll be smaller.
Exactly.
But they're all good concerns. I mean, we have to, have those discussions, of course. But, I mean, I like it. It's something I think, in my personal opinion, a good use of the dollars. But, I don't, we'll go up and down. We'll see where everybody else is. But thank you, Drew. Appreciate
you.
all the work. Well, I don't know if everyone was done quite yet. I don't know if I'd run away. It was a good try, though. Any other questions from the board? No? Let me just make sure real quick, Drew.
Okay.
No? All righty, Drew. I think you gave us a lot to think on.
All right.
Thank you.
Bobby shouldn't be the only one running back and forth.
Go running away on me there, geez.
Mayor, if I could, just for Mr. Slattery, we do
Sure.
have the public parking lot that's located up on the north side of Franklin Street, there by the roundabout.
Oh, yeah, there's like 10 or 12
There's about
spots
20,
over there.
yeah, it's about 20 spaces there. And so we do have that, even though it is a little bit of a walk, but we do have that available as well.
Okay, great. That's right. I forgot all about those. Thank you, Brian. All righty, our next item on the agenda, it's item number 4. It's a parking structure in Oviedo on the Park. So this, I'll turn over to Mr. Jones.
Very good. Pardon me, just for one moment. There we go. This is a request for the Community Redevelopment Agency Governing Board to provide direction regarding a developer's request to financially participate in the construction of a parking structure within the Oviedo on the Park development. CRA staff has met with representatives of Michael Collar Properties, and they're in the audience this evening, a property development group that is developing lots 3A and 4 within the Oviedo on the Park development. MCP has prepared detailed cost estimates for a 3-deck and 4-deck parking structure, a ground plus 3 parking structure with 263 stalls, and a ground plus 4-deck parking structure with 336 stalls. The 3-deck structure is cost estimate at $5.55 million up to $5.65 million, and the 4-deck garage is from $6.85 million to $6.95 million. The request is for the CRA board to consider the inclusion or to provide direction, regarding the participation of the CRA with the construction or potential development of a parking structure within Oviedo on the Park.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Do you have any, I didn't see anything in here. Are there
Let me get this.
cost associated? Is there a sharing agreement being proposed?
There is not. What we're asking for this evening is merely direction regarding whether or not to proceed with additional discussions and examine additional financial options or financing options that may be available to the CRA in the future.
All right, so right now you just want direction if this is a consideration for this board and to put together that information.
Correct. This is to merely introduce the project to the board.
All righty, great. I see the applicant is here. Do you have anything that you'd like to add on the project, what you're doing, or are we a little premature? Michael, come on up. Maybe just, well, obviously introduce yourself to the board, but maybe 100,000 foot about what you want to do and why you think something like this would be a good idea in participation.
Good evening. My name is Michael Collard of Michael Collard Properties in Orlando. We recently acquired the remainder land of Oviedo on the Park. Lots 3A, 3B, and 4 is what we're calling them. I think the plat actually calls them something different. We are going through the approval process right now for multiple structures on those various parcels. I know one of them is up this evening, and we've just stolen their display, which is the Ford's Garage plan coming up later this evening. Our plans are to build a Ford's Garage on the frontage parcel of Mitchell Hammock Road, along with 3 other retail and restaurant buildings. Going back down City Plaza Way, we intend to build a brewery with a rooftop deck, a food hall, and multiple other retail and restaurant lifestyle uses. And our final phase will be what we're calling Breathe, which is a health village type project of more aesthetic and non-insurance-based health care. We have a plan that we have parked on the city mixed-use matrix plan. Our plan parks at grade, so our plan actually does not need a structure itself. However, in talking to various interested parties, it appears like the city may well need more spaces for events that are generated by Oviedo on the park, the city side of it. And we're more than happy to participate in something along those lines. We have obviously a cost of our surface parking that we could, give back to the project, because we wouldn't be building if we were building a deck. We also have the land, of course, that we're more than happy to, participate in some structure. So we're more than ready, willing, and able to negotiate a fair deal. And we are happy in the meantime to accommodate the overflow parking from the city lot for events right now. We've been doing that for the last 9 months. So there certainly is a need for, we are over parking it from city events there a certain number of times of the year. We look forward to, a good discussion about this, and hopefully CRA taking a positive view about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions for Mr. Collard?
Yeah, I have a question. So I hear what you're saying, and this is obviously your property, and I presume the structure of an agreement and who gets which parking spots really comes down to the numbers and the finances. So the question I have for you, if you're going to look at this potential more intense parking need with more restaurants, I presume that's what drives that, uses that need more than retail type parking is what you're hoping to accommodate?
We've parked all our projected uses at grade with the plan we have today.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have enough parking at grade for the 10 or 12 spaces per thousand for a high-volume restaurant, the 5 per thousand for retail. Put that all in the mixed-use matrix for downtown, where certain uses occupy certain times of the day. So a restaurant's busier noon through night and busier on the weekends. Office is pretty much empty after 5 p.m. There's a matrix created by the city for that, which we plugged in, and all of our uses are accommodated within that matrix.
So I guess what I'm getting to is, are you desirous of increasing the percentage of what you might call lifestyle type uses that are more parking burdensome, so to speak?
No, I think we've got our entitlements and what we plan to build we're happy with what we've got.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're looking to the future and saying the city events plus your use is going to start creating a pinch point.
We'll be at war with each other on parking spaces if we're not careful.
So
yeah.
I guess what I'm getting at is the city has a parking lot that could conceivably receive the same treatment, get a parking deck later.
Very much so, yes.
So I'll just tell you, I don't think this is in and of itself a bad idea, and everyone else will have their own input. What I'm fearful of is we're looking at, you heard the discussion about the post office, which could, with a couple other items and our support of Oviedo in the Park debt, use up next year's budget.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to be looking forward to the other needs, and I would hate to draw you into a discussion if you have what you need and can proceed with what you need, where we might not be able to put any funding forth if we go forward with some of these other projects for 2-3 years.
Right.
So
understood.
I was just trying to understand, do you have a problem you're asking us to resolve? The answer is really no, you don't. You perceive a future problem as the city facilities get more busy and you reach build out.
Correct.
Is that, okay.
Yeah, on a busy night, I don't want us to get involved where the city and I are starting to police our own parking spaces.
Right.
You know, that's not a friendly way to do business together, in my opinion. So it would behoove us to create more spaces,
But
obviously.
based
But as you say, if it was a second and a third deck on the existing city spaces, solve the same problem. Yeah.
Right, it's not that far away from.
Yeah, so that's certainly a viable alternative for you guys, obviously.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Yeah.
All righty. Anything else from Mr. Collett? Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from the board on this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I think this is a great use of funds, but like Mr. Axel said, I don't know if we'll have the funds for another couple of years, so I don't know if it's if there's some sort of an agreement or some sort of a delayed use of the funds that we could work out to try to build this sooner than later, either on our property or on this property, because this is definitely a need for the Oviedo on the Park to have additional parking. So.
I believe that's the direction that they're asking for. Deputy Mayor, is to just be able to put together scenarios to bring back
Right.
how it would be funded. Also, I'm not quite sure if Breathe is something that's going to be done next year or the year after, I think. So there may be a little bit of time in the funding aspect. But I think that's the questions they're going to answer if we ask them to.
Right.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
You know, this is one of those projects where we constantly say, councils of way back 30, 40 years ago didn't have the vision enough to widen 434, and we're now wrestling with this issue right now. This reminds me of some council sitting here 30, 40 years now when there's so many things in Oviedo on the park and there's no place to park. And we know that when there's an event out there now, it's a problem. So I like the idea, to work with staff, bring us back some scenarios on how this would be funded. It certainly is needed. And if it looks like that, I'm a fan. I like that a lot. So we shouldn't just blow it off. We should take it serious so we're not sitting here years down the road and saying we have no parking and things are a lot more expensive, and, just to try to figure out a way to get it going. So I like the idea.
All right. Keith, do you have anything to add?
I'm good. I just would mention I was in Cocoa Beach the other day, and they have an old traditional downtown that they just put in a new parking garage, and it's very, very convenient to go there now. It's a different situation because you got people wanting to go to the beach and stuff, but they got this huge garage that you can just go park, and you're 2 minutes from the beach.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Beach, like that.
Jeff? Chief?
Right now, when we have events down there, there's issues with the Strand. People parking there or parking over at Park Place and getting towed. Having a place where that doesn't occur and you don't have that conflict between who's parking where, which only creates hardship and creates animosity, I think it's something that is worth investigating.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
you going to skip me?
No, I was coming to you now. You're the parking guru. I was saving you for last.
Well, I did read the study, at least, but I have a couple of issues. Putting a parking garage in the primo spot, I have a little bit of an issue with. This gentleman's willing to probably give the land as his portion, but I'm sure it's better served as retail, restaurants, and other developments.
Michael, come on up. Because I think this is where your surface parking's going anyway, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't adequately explain where this garage is going. It's actually being hidden. It'll be lined by retail and high-rent liner buildings. So this building, although fully finished, will actually sit behind the retail buildings. So we're not giving up our prime real estate.
And I guess I would assume that the only reason to go up is for the city's problem with parking?
That is correct. On the
You have what you need.
on this land behind our buildings, our Breathe buildings on the final phase, we can surface part. Oh, there is a site plan. Sorry, no,
Yeah, I think
that's
John
sorry.
just pulled
That's
it.
the food factory across the street. There is, I think, we've planned 178 parking spaces at grade. So this would add a further. John, what was the total on the four decks? 336
Four
spaces.
decks was going to be...
Yeah, 336.
Yes.
336.
Thank you.
So adding another 170 on top of ours, basically. So as I say, our position starting out would be whatever the 176 costs us to build, we wouldn't have to build it anymore. We hand that money over and the land.
Right.
If the budget isn't available for this year, next year, or the year after, if there's a mechanism for me to borrow the money, build it on my dime, and get a revenue stream back to cover that cost, then I'm okay with that too. So,
Thank you.
Anything else, Tim?
Yes. I would like us to look for alternatives so that we can solve our own problem and not look to a private owner to do a JV. In other words, are there other parcels of land we can buy to turn into parking that are convenient? That's what I would like to see.
Mr. Cobb, can you answer that?
My suggestion would be going vertical on the existing lot at the corner of Center Lake and Oviedo Boulevard. That would be my recommendation. If we're going to use city-owned property, that would be my recommendation, is to go vertical on that lot where we already have parking.
Which is convenient.
It would be convenient, yes. And it's not only convenient to the south, but it's also convenient to the north.
Okay,
That's all I have.
great.
great. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Well, I think that a structure of some sort, the only reason I hesitate on the lot that we have, and the lot was designed when it was built to accommodate the weight of a parking structure. So the existing lot does have the capability to do that, but when we have large-scale events, that lot actually gets used sometimes for the event. So, we have to look at all the different options. I mean, I don't think there's any harm in finding out what the cost would be and the possible funding of a 3 or 4 deck garage, be it on Mr. Collard's property or be it, John, on our property.
Understood.
And maybe bring both of that back to us so that way the board could take a look at it. I mean, how we would do it, how the financing would structure. It would probably be bonded money, I would assume, at some point. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I'd like to know, because the whole success of Oviedo on the Park, the whole success of which we're going to talk about later, the renovation of the historic downtown, is going to be having areas where folks can park. And we're going to see a presentation on a possible plan that includes a parking deck later on. So obviously the need's being acknowledged. Oviedo on the Park has been quite successful. The parking isn't as big of an issue as it's perceived right now, because these other structures aren't there yet. When Mr. Collett built his structures and you don't have the overflow gravel parking lot that we take advantage of for all the large-scale events, and Ford's Garage is there, the other retail, I think a couple of hundred spots up there, if I remember, 300, 200, something like that. Okay, so 150 spots or so up there. That's going to be being used by those retailers. And as Mr. Collard said, instead of getting into this parking match like we do with the Strand, which we sort of knew that was going to happen, and it's come into fruition. Why don't we be forward thinking? Why do we always default to backwards thinking? Let's look and just see what everything looks like, and then we can go from there. I mean, if comes back and it's not feasible on either property, well, then that's something to discuss, but we don't know that yet. And I think that we have a willing partner to work with us this time around, and, I'd like to see, personally, I just want to see what it looks like. Put it on paper and show us what these scenarios could be, so. And I don't know if we have consensus for that. I thought we did, but yes.
Just one more thing. If you look at building it on the current parking lot that the city has, when you have events during that construction phase, you lose that parking.
No, that is
So
true.
it's just something to consider.
We could take all those nice light poles and move them up to the community center. That'll cut your budget in half on lighting, Drew. Is there consensus at least to let them look at both scenarios instead of just one scenario?
Who's them and what is the cost?
Let Mr. Jones take a peek at it, let him sit with Mr. Collard and see on his property, and then also, John, now that we have guesstimates on what the structure actually costs, maybe on our property.
Yes, sir.
I don't see a problem with looking at it. One suggestion, I really have no idea, but presumably there's some level of site prep necessary to support a garage. So a question in my mind would be, what might the incremental cost on your site be to accommodate a future garage so that there's not reconstruction if we decide to go down this path later? I'm sure your experts sitting there can figure that one out. Right. It just would be good information to come back with us, because maybe that's something we can discuss and move forward with before we have enough money to deal with this problem somewhere.
Now, the other thing also is that we do require sprinkler systems in a parking garage, which I find to be a bit redundant, which I know adds about $500,000 to the cost. So maybe Mr. Cobb can sit down with Mr. Buchanan and see if that's really needed, but I'm not quite sure. So is there consensus, at least for them to look at all the scenarios we discussed?
Yes.
Yes. Also, don't limit it to just funding sources from debt and trying to do that, but also look at if need be, if we need to charge. I know that's been a sticking point, but if the people are going to use it, we may need to charge and come up with some sort of a fee structure for that as well, in order to fund this until it gets paid off. So.
Okay. Looks like I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You guys good just looking at it?
We can look. I think it's a total waste of time. You've built a parking lot to build a garage on. We have a solution. We're not looking backwards. You built this to look forward, and I think that when the time comes we need to build on it, we should pull the trigger.
No, that's a good point. So study up on ours as well, John.
Aye, sir.
All righty. Next item up.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Before you move on to the next item, could we go back to item 3 just for a second, the post office, because
All right.
I know the staff memo asked for this board's direction. I didn't hear any direction given on the post office, so, on...
What are you suggesting, Councilman?
Well, I'm suggesting that, we have a CRA and we just put the sewer in at a Boys and Girls Club. That looks nice in a CRA, and we've had this thing for 8 years, and it's been sitting there, and nothing's going on, and I think we move forward on that to start that going. That's a big thing that people see in this area, and we've had a need for it for 14 years that I've sat up here. People have been asking for it, so I think we move on, and we set that one. I realize funds and parking garages and our funds are limited, but that's got to be a priority. That's something we've been promising for a long time, so I didn't hear the direction, but I'm for it.
All righty. Let's, Keith, what do you think?
I'm for it. Let's go.
Bob?
Yes.
Chief?
Yes.
Dave?
I'm not sure what that means as far as what we're doing. I think this is something for potentially next year's budget, which we'll be discussing in a few months. So my thought was we got a presentation, and when we're working on next year's budget, we can decide some things like, are we going to go out and hire some design professionals, which I think may make some sense, which we can afford. And we also we're discussing on our next item the Old Downtown Master Plan. This is part of that area. We've got a lot of moving parts there. Maybe in just several months we're ready to move forward on this. I just thought it was a little premature tonight, that's all.
All right, Tim?
I'm all for it with the parking issue that I raised.
All righty, John, why don't you start putting together true budgets on
Yes, sir.
making this happen, make it part of the upcoming budget, and let's get this thing rolling, because it looks like we are certainly all for it.
Got it.
But, the parking issue, anything that we can do to add spaces as requested, I think is a good idea. And let's get the community center and the senior center rolling.
Aye, sir.
Thank you. All righty, so now we're going to move forward to the Downtown Master Plan update, which is item number 5 for the old downtown. So, Mr. Jones, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor Sampier, members of the Oviedo Governing Board. This is a request from the Community Redevelopment Agency Governing Board to provide direction regarding the update of the city's downtown master plan focused on the old downtown area. The original downtown Oviedo master plan was adopted by the City Council in 2002 and amended in 2003. The amended downtown master plan provides guidance for the redevelopment and development of the city's downtown, bounded by Mitchell Hammock Road to the south, Franklin Street to the north, Oviedo Boulevard in the east, and properties adjacent to the west side of State Road 434. The downtown master plan addresses placemaking for new development in the Oviedo on the Park areas along Oviedo Boulevard and redevelopment downtown in the old downtown and along areas along State Road 434. The downtown master plan also served as the supporting data, inventory, and analysis for amendments to the city's comprehensive plan and land development code. Mr. Cobb is here to provide additional details with regards to the downtown master plan update for the old downtown area, and we also have Mr. Javier Romano here from CPH as well. Mr. Cobb.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. As Mr. Jones mentioned, our downtown master plan was done back in 2002 and then later amended in 2003. And the primary focus of the downtown master plan was obviously Oviedo on the Park. When you look at our downtown, it stretches basically from L.P. Woods Boulevard up to Franklin Street. And in 2002 and 2003, it looked at a blank canvas down at Mitchell Hammock Road, and then it looked at a redevelopment opportunity in what we call the old downtown. The only thing about it was there was a great level of detail that was provided in what we would call the blank canvas area, which became Oviedo on the Park. But in the old downtown area, there wasn't the same level of detail that was provided. It didn't receive the same level of attention that was done in the southern part. Primarily, reason was because the consultants looked at it from the standpoint of County Road 419 is going to be widened, and that's going to create a barrier. And so the city's going to have to address that eventually. Staff has been working with the property owners on the relocation of Geneva Drive to the east. And that's one of the important components of our downtown redevelopment is getting that intersection where it is now, moving it further to the east so that we can establish city blocks within the area. And one of the things that's come up in our discussions is that our comprehensive plan and land development code really don't promote the type of redevelopment on an urban scale that we really want to promote in the downtown area to create this downtown core. It's really more still on a suburban scale. And so one of the ideas that we have is to go back, now that we have the widenings begun, Phase 2 is going to be let out in May, probably going to start construction, later on in the year. Phase 1's done. The realignment's going to be, we're working to get the realignment as part of the Phase 2. But this would be a good time to go in and reevaluate that downtown master plan, especially now that, it's, 15 years old, 16 years old. And to bring it up to date. And to look at the influence that we've had and the success that we've had in the blank canvas in the Oviedo on the Park, and how that influence will move northward into the old downtown. Yes, as was mentioned by Mr. Jones, we have a master land use plan that's coming forward, and that master land use plan is written in such a way to be flexible within the existing comprehensive plan and land development code. But it's also written in a way such that if we do make changes based on a new area plan, that we can still move forward with the project. And it was one of the things that the staff and the bank had to work on religiously to try to make that work, and it was a very difficult process to go through. And so one of the things that I mentioned was that we have a relationship with CPH as a continuing services provider, and they have a relationship with the University of Florida. And at the University of Florida Graduate School, they have a design studio that they do each fall. And this would be one of those projects that graduate program could undertake, this small area study, and have it look at the urban form and have it go in to make recommendations, uses, spatial recommendations, look at comprehensive plan recommendations, look at land development code recommendations to create this vision for that old downtown. Something else that's new in the old downtown that was never contemplated in the downtown master plan was our park. The master stormwater system wasn't contemplated. Actually, I still remember to this day one of the last meetings we had in 2003 with the committee was they were arguing over what to designate that property. The consultants wanted to designate it townhomes, and the property owners did not want it designated townhomes. And so we worked out a compromise to designate the entire thing Old Downtown Core, which would give it a mixed-use flavor. But the idea of us having a master stormwater plan was not contemplated in 2003. And so that's another factor that can go into this whole new redevelopment of the old downtown. Mr. Omana is here, and I asked him to come tonight because I'd like you to hear about the design studio. It's a really interesting concept, and it's I don't know if any of you remember when we did the project with the University of South Florida and their graduate school, and they came in and looked at our downtown, and the kids came in with uptown, midtown, downtown. They had a lot of different fascinating things, and I think this would be a good thing for us as far as looking at this small area and bringing bring it up to date, really. And so I'd like to have Mr. Omana come up and address the board. And Mayor, it gets me excited because I get to do planning again. So,
good evening. Thank you, Brian. As Brian said before, Javier Romano with CPH. You all are. We are one of your consultants for many, many years. But when Brian approached me about the possibility of engaging the University of Florida Design Studio was quite humbling. I'm obviously a product of the University of Florida, but also the fact that I've been involved also on the private side with some of the projects here within Oviedo. So I see this as a great opportunity to not replicate what's happened in Oviedo and the park, but also to treat the old downtown in a different fashion, context-driven design solutions that are unique to that particular area. You've got a lot of development pressures at the fact that you've got property owners that are seeing the market come to them finally after all these years. You have county growth, and by means of a widening of a road, the need to have Geneva redirected and repositioned within the downtown. And you've got the bank property who is proposing their own master plan. The city's own stormwater pond that was never envisioned to be an asset. And now you've got and I was happy to see the potential plan for the post office. So now you've got all these elements that are, in lack of a better word, forcing the city to act, to put together a plan, to update the plan that was basically a suburban plan back in 2003, and to update it. How does the studio fit in? I'd like to acknowledge my wife, Christina Height, whom you all know very well, key master planner. And
we might like her a little better.
I'm afraid so. Yes, I don't blame you. And
it's okay. We love you.
So, and it's because of Christina that she brought me back to Florida, to the university, after many, many years of being absent from academia. So it's because of her edging and prodding me to get back into the program as an instructor and to engage the students that's why I'm here today, and with Brian's insight into what we've done. I see the studio being a blank canvas. These are folks that are extremely talented with a great potential to introduce new ideas, contextually driven ideas, given the things that are beginning to happen in the old downtown. You all have done a fantastic job, magnificent job of creating a fantastic database with Bobby Wyatt's project of the stormwater pond. All these things are coming into place. What better time now to look into the future? Come up with a plan that is an urban plan, not a suburban plan, that dictates the public realm. How does the public realm affect land use? And that's one of the greatest things when we teach, when Chris and I go before our students at Florida, even clients today. What makes a great city? What makes a great downtown? It's the relationship between the public realm and what happens in those bubbles that we create for development. Open space, densities, intensities, building heights. All of those things, we basically would create with the students a blueprint for the growth of that very unique area of the city. So under the leadership of Dr. Kevin Thompson, who would be leading the studio and taking care of the students, and I call it the triumvirate, Christina, myself, and Dave and Kevin Thompson, we would be the directing traffic, as it were, and using the students as boots on the ground, and with Brian and his planning staff, and the engagement. Key to this process as well is the engagement of the key property owners, without a doubt. I made a presentation earlier today at Seminole County where I made a point that community engagement and any type of plan, whether it's a redevelopment plan, a golf course repositioning plan, it has to rely on critical, positive engagement of the community, the key property owners, the stakeholders, because without their input, whatever plan comes in is worthless, because you have to have buy-in from the property owners and from the elected officials, and with solutions that make sense. Create a template that is flexible enough to react to market conditions. One of my biggest frustrations in my 30-plus years of practice has been these ironclad plans that dictate this particular corner is going to be this, this, and this, and nothing happens. That's one of the things, not to throw darts at fellow municipalities and clients. The city of Orlando has undergone major growing pains with a very inflexible urban design plan that mandates X amount of retail at ground level in mixed-use projects. A lot of those ground level floors sit empty right now because you can't force development. You cannot force retail. So one of the things that we do, that we teach in our studio involvement, is come up with a plan that makes sense. Have input from our many years of experience, and have a plan that is flexible and implementable. So what we're proposing through the university is a very tight 16-week period in which we will analyze existing data, engage the property owners and stakeholders. You have a great amount of, and a fantastic amount of institutional data and background with Brian and his staff. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're taking all this information, injecting new ideas to create a plan that is implementable and that will create value for the property owners and create place. So I'd like to acknowledge and actually have Chris come up and provide you all with some of her insight as well.
Thank you. My name is Chris Height. I'm with Dix Height Plus Partners, and I think most of you know me. We've been happily involved with the City of Oviedo over the years. I did just want to give a little bit of background on the UF studio. It's an implementation studio, urban design studio, and Professor Kevin Thompson has a strong legacy of community engagement. A list of communities that the studio has been involved in the past includes the City of Jacksonville, Live Oak, Green Cove Springs, Longwood, White Springs, amongst others. Many of these plans and studies are award winners, both APA and ASLA, and I've personally been involved in several of these studios, and I think you'll get a lot of bang for your buck, basically. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. But as Javier mentioned, we've already mapped out the process week by week because it has to fit within the 14-week semester framework, and in fact would pretty much hit the ground running upon your approval, because it would be occurring this fall, which I think the first class is August 26th. So with that,
Great, thank you,
thank you,
Chris.
Mr. Mayor.
It's great to see you.
You too.
Vito on the park is looking great.
I know.
Good.
So happy.
For those who don't know, Chris and her team were involved in that from the very roots and the very beginning. So great job there, and design work for the historic downtown, landscaping. They've had their ideas throughout our city, so we do appreciate it. So what does the board think about visioning for the original downtown area?
Is there a cost involved?
$45,000.
What department is it under at U of L?
It's the Department of Landscape Architecture,
Okay.
of which I have a master's from, have done some adjunct teaching, and yes.
Thanks.
And as Javier mentioned, he's done some studio teaching, and is also got his master's there as well in urban and regional planning.
Mr. Mayor?
Let's just, Keith, are you all?
I'm done, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, this is just like what I talked about with the other issue. You know, 30 years ago, people didn't have the vision. We have this opportunity now to lay this all out for down the road. Some other group is sitting here. They have the roadmap to do it. I mean, the city is changing. We're not building shopping centers anymore. We're building the Oviedo on the parks and things like that and urban stuff. So, I mean, to me, this is a small cost to plan the Bible, so to speak, as we're going out all these years. So I'm in favor.
I'll just go up and down the whole dais. Bob?
I think this is a great way to accomplish the goal of looking at this. This is a very innovative way in using the students. I think this is a great project. I think that laying out this master plan will help all of us in the future plan for this, for the old downtown or the historic downtown.
Thank you, Bob. Chief Chudnow? Jeff, I'm sorry.
Well, I agree with Bob. I think having the students at a fresh look, new eyes, be taking a look at something that hasn't been looked at in so long, I think it's a good idea.
I'm supportive.
Great. Tim?
I'm supportive, but I have one question.
Of course. Should I bring somebody up for you?
No. You know, I picture this group of brilliant young minds putting our plan together that have never been to Oviedo. And I guess my question is, how do they stay in touch with not only what the market is, what the developers need to get out of a parcel? Because it sounds like they have no practical developer's experience.
Indeed. It's a very good question, because the minds that are being molded at the university right now are free from political issues and the realities of development. That's why with Kevin Thompson, who is a sole practitioner as well and studio director, Christina and I, and our firms, CPH and Dick Site, we're a known quantity in town. I think we were able to guide that ship and inject that needed knowledge to those young minds and educate them to the realities of life. I mean, a very brief story. I did my internship in Puerto Rico. I did a master plan and urban design plan for a small town in Puerto Rico. And that was my thesis, my NCAP study. I go back to defend my thesis. And this is during the golden age of master planning at the University of Florida. Great academic minds. My thesis leader said to me, Javier, this looks great. Yeah, it's about 5 pounds, and he threw it up against the corner. And then he said to me, forget your thesis. I'm asking you one question. You have 15 minutes to respond to this. Is planning political? I went outside, gathered my thoughts, and came back. I'm standing here, 35 years after that, but these are the realities that we need to teach these young minds.
Javier, is planning political?
I don't know, Mr. Mayor. But as part of this process, we will have a series of design charrettes and community outreach meetings where we'll have the property owners, the stakeholders come out. And the students will not be leading those sessions. Christina, myself, and Kevin will be leading those because I think we're a little more, not jaded, but we're a little more experienced in that regard. So they will be learning from this. So it's a laboratory for them, but it's real life for us and for you all. So.
And the key there is to come out with a product that is sellable.
Absolutely, yes.
To a potential developer. Not with some grandiose idea that was generated at the University of Florida.
No. It's, the city is hiring CPH, Dix Height, and the University of Florida School of Design. Christina and I are not, we're basically donating our services for this. So, and the rest is, this will be a product. I mean, this is our backyard. This is where we live and work and recreate. It would be a disservice to you all for us to come in with a cartoon at the end of the day. This will be an implementable plan.
Thank you. Make me comfortable.
Sure.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Javier, I have a quick question. You said there'll be public input with the stakeholders also, though. I thought
Yes.
I heard that somewhere along the line. So
Correct. Yes.
It's not like you're not going to meet with the property owners. We're not going to have a public input session. I mean, that'll all be part of this as these students are kind of working on this.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, we will, as I mentioned, public engagement is key. Yes, questionnaires, design sessions, and the boots on the ground is critical as well. And the three of us will be leading that charge. It's critical. These students cannot work in a vacuum. They have to understand the existing conditions in the lay of the land.
All right. I mean, 'cause that's what made Oviedo on the Park so successful was like you said, the buy-in.
Correct.
That was the important part, in passing the bond and then actually bringing it into reality a little bit later than we hoped. But, the reality is really starting to take form now, and with what you heard that Michael Collard wants to do with the balance of the property, I mean, it's really going to make the whole vision that we talked to with Christine for years about, come into play.
Right. And let's fast forward to the end of early December, when we make the presentation of the final product. You all, as elected officials, will have to make a decision whether it makes sense relative to densities, intensities, building setbacks, things of that nature. So it's not just...
Then we get a chance to roll it out to the public, tweak it, discuss it.
Correct.
Awesome.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Well, you don't have to ask me about visioning. I've been asking for it for 5 years for the whole entire city. So I think this is a great start, even if it's just in the original downtown, which has been pointed out this evening to us all, is it kind of became, I don't want to call it the afterthought of the Oviedo on the Park planning, but it was never completed. It was this is what we would kind of like. So I'm for this 100%. Let me just make sure there's consensus. Yes. Good. You already said yes, I think, right, David? Mm-hmm. Right. We have consensus, and you can move along with this.
We need a motion, I think, to...
Do you need a vote on it, or do you want consensus on it?
No, sir. Consensus is sufficient.
Yeah, I didn't see anything to vote on, so...
Right. Mayor, what we'll do is, this is going to require a budget amendment, so your next meeting, we'll bring a budget amendment.
Okay. Right. Consensus to move forward.
Just like you did tonight with the sewer project, we'll bring the same thing next meeting.
Okay.
So when do the students start?
Which means you're going to have a meeting in August.
So do we have enough time here, Brian?
You'll have to have a meeting in August.
Well, we've got...
Can we do it now?
August 19th.
Is there a reason we can't do this now? We just don't have a resolution ready, or?
You could do it now, just offer the public an opportunity to participate before you vote.
All righty. I will take that advice from our city attorney, and the CRA board is considering $45,000 expenditure in order to facilitate a visioning plan for the original downtown. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak for or against? Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public comment portion and move on to the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion, I guess, to, we don't have a resolution or anything to do, but to adopt the spending of $45,000 on the update to the plan.
Second.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Councilman Henkin?
No, sir.
Dave Axel?
March on.
None.
Any from the board?
No.
Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion to expend $45,000 on the downtown master plan update as presented this evening, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That take care of it, Mr. Groot?
Sir.
All righty. There you go. Go forth and plan. But I still want to hear that 15 minutes on is planning political. I'll meet you at De La Vega and you can tell me all about it. How's that sound? All right, we have one item left, and I know we're running late, and I apologize to everybody who's here for our regular agenda. We're up to item number 6. We did have a lot of exciting things on the CRA agenda for this evening, and that is the preliminary budget items. Mr. Jones, turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and members of the Oviedo CRA Governing Board. This item is purely an informational item to introduce preliminary budget outline to facilitate CRA Governing Board discussion prior to the formal budget work sessions commencing next month. We've listed preliminary budget items for the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for your consideration and review, and other potential capital projects listed as well. This is merely an informational item for you to review and look at in preparation for the annual budget workshops that are upcoming.
You need no action on this
No
item?
action, sir.
All right. Does anybody have any questions on it this time, or we'll wait till it comes to us at a future meeting date?
Well, you know I do.
Huh?
You know I do.
I know you
know
do.
why.
Can I script it?
Pretty much.
Implement it? No.
Exactly. 3 years now, we've been paying debt service for something the CRA had nothing to do with. And so unless that is removed, I cannot support this direction or this budget.
No, I respect that. Is there anything else? Nothing at this time. So, Mr. Jones, you'll bring this to us at a future meeting date.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones, anything else for the board?
No, sir.
Updating upcoming meeting schedule, August 19th, 5:30 p.m. We have the budget discussion, as was just mentioned. September 16th is a tentative meeting. That's probably for adoption of the budget, I would assume.
Yes, sir.
October 21st is our regular governing board meeting, and then December 2nd is our regular governing board meeting. We did run a little late. I do apologize to everybody. We'll reconvene the regular city council meeting at 7 p.m. This meeting's adjourned.
Let's get started.